my immediate kindred. So the whole world thought I was crazy. I had no business aspiring. I had no business growing up. I had no business developing as a young man. But because of the situation of our nation then, people had opportunities to excel. Young men and women had opportunities to develop to their highest potentials. And I believed in myself. And I believed that nothing can stop me from making progress as a young man. And so I ran against my father's age mate. And I beat him. And I was elected into the House of Assembly. I was just a few months after turning 25 years. And that was the situation in Nigeria then. And I can tell you that in the entire process of the elections then, I didn't spend more than 6,000 naira to go to the House of Assembly. The highest thing I went from one community to the other was a bowl of garden egg and 1 or 2 crates of mineral. That was the highest thing that I went with, because there were no major expenditures for elections then. But fast forward to the present day in Nigeria. If you have to go to the House of Assembly in Nigeria, you have to spend a minimum of 200 million. But I went to the House of Assembly with barely 6,000 naira. A young man, a greenhorn. And when we eventually emerged and went to the House of Assembly, it became also a big issue. Because the person who was leading us then as governor was a man we all know well, later Governor Ivan Ewerem. And I came into the House of Assembly with radical ideas about what development should be and what it ought to be. And then I had my fierce independence of what I wanted to do. So the first major issue that confronted me in the House of Assembly was the government not performing. Even though the governor then and myself, we are members of the same party, NRC. But I'll go to the floor of the House and I'll say the government has not done this. The government is not doing this. At a point, we were not invited. The state was in crisis. Every place was shut down. There was strike everywhere. Schools were shut down. They called us members of the House of Assembly to a meeting, called all the commissioners, leaders of the states, or whatnot, to multipurpose hall then, when it used to be multipurpose hall. So the governor that called us, unfortunately, he had to travel to Abuja. I'm still talking about what Nigeria was. And then I'm digging into what Nigeria is now. So the governor's representative then at the meeting was late Douglas Achulonu, who was his deputy. And they addressed us about why the state is in crisis. Why everybody in the state must support the government in power to develop the state. You know, and at that time, after the speech, nobody was sure of what to respond. And I had to speak because I don't go to a meeting and you keep me my mouth shut without giving me opportunity to talk if I want to talk. And I said the reason why we are in crisis in Imo State is because of the fact that His Excellency the Governor is a stubborn man. And I said schools are shut down, workers are not being paid, water does not run, there is no development projects going on, and the governor, instead of facing these challenges, he finds it more convenient touring local government areas collecting gifts of cows. And that was my mind I spoke in the meeting. So when the governor now came back, the governor summoned us. We were 25 members in NRC in his party then, and 17 in SDP. So he called us, members of his party in the House. His party members. And he started berating everybody, the governor. And the governor said, some people say he's stupid, some people say he's stubborn, some people, that he doesn't understand why the state House of Assembly that is made up of majority members of his party, he doesn't understand why they keep fighting him, yet they're in the same party with him. And I knew he was referring to me. And I was sitting directly opposite him in his office conference table. Then at a point, the governor and I looked at me eyeball to eyeball and said, "Honorable Ibe, am I stubborn?" That's what he asked me. That's his usual voice. You know, I got up and I said, "Your Excellency, with all due respect, yes." I now defined to him the meaning of stubbornness. I told him, stubborn is an English language that is not an insult. When somebody holds a view, no matter how hard or how bad or how good his view is, no matter the opposition to his views, he uses everything at his disposal to make sure his view is accepted. I say, Your Excellency, that's the meaning of stubbornness, and that's what you are. It's not an insult. Then the man took his glass and threw it on the table. I never forget this story, about 30 years ago. He said, "Honorable Ibe, you should know I'm your age in government. You should know I'm your senior in government. I'm your senior at the bar. And I'm your senior in age." I say, "Your Excellency, yes sir, you are my senior in age. You are my senior at the bar. But unfortunately, you are not my senior in government." I say, "You are the legislative arm, I'm at the legislative arm, and you are at the executive arm. There is no seniority." And I said, if even there is any atom of seniority, it is the House of Assembly members that have the right to impeach the governor, so they could be said to be superior. But in today's Nigeria, analyzing socio-political situation in today's Nigeria, tell me any House of Assembly member that can go to the governor and tell him he's not doing well. Conscientiously and politically speaking, none. Go to the current National Assembly. The Senate president wears the same cap with the president every day to look funny. I mean, we live in a world now that politics no longer makes sense. It's all about, sucking up to people in executive, nationwide, not just in Nigeria, but also in a lot of countries in Africa, except a few examples like Rwanda, Ghana, and a few other places. The current political, socio-political situation in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. Look at from the cradle, from producing candidates to run for office in political parties in Nigeria. Political nomination processes in Nigeria is the most fraudulent in the history of the world. Political party leaders don't screen candidates anymore. What they screen is their pockets. Because if they screen candidates, if they screen aspirants, a lot of people who are candidates are not supposed to emerge as candidates. But they don't. It's cash and carry. An armed robber could come into a political party and throw 100 billion naira and they make him a presidential candidate. What type of president will the person be? An armed robber can go to a political party, spend 50 billion, they make you a Senate candidate. What kind of senator will you be in a nation? There cannot be progress. And none of the parties are excluded in the present day Nigeria. I mean, I've been in the political process for 32 years now. Just like MC said, I've run for governor in this state. This is my 5th time. And in the present political party I belong to today, Labour Party, you can see because of the mess, we have 4 factional governorship candidates, including myself. There are 4 of us who are laying claim to the governorship ticket of Labour Party. I'm one of them. Unfortunately. And because of a simple process that is supposed to be straightforward, that 1 plus 1 is supposed to give 2. In primary processes, sometimes 1 plus 1 gives you 20. And parties that write these constitutions, parties that make rules for themselves, like one outsider was saying the other day, parties write their constitutions, parties write their rules and regulations, and these parties go to the court to ask court to explain the rules they wrote. Because Ezone go left and right. They no longer want to accept the realities, the facts of the things they wrote in their regulations and in their constitutions. That is what is happening to us in the Labour Party. The Labour Party has a constitution that says the state chapter of the party alone can conduct the primaries for governorship in the state. But because people here and there go and collect all kinds of money, the national people now carry all their bag and come to say they must conduct it, when the constitution says it is the state. And the state conducted their primaries, their own primaries, being one of the factions, and they nominated me as their candidate. And then we went to court. I mean, something that is supposed to be settled according to the rules of the games. Everybody now goes to the court, wasting resources, stressing themselves out, being traumatized and all that. That is because things are no longer done politically the way they used to be done in those days. So what is the way forward? That's the question. Analyzing socio-political situation in today's Nigeria, the way forward. The way forward is all of us. I mean, we are going to be the party leaders tomorrow. People here will emerge as party leaders or government leaders tomorrow. We go to all these programs, we listen to all kinds of talks like this, and we shudder. Giving you one analogy. If you are driving on the road now and see a fatal accident scene, the natural thing for you to do is you stop. Maybe you come out and join others and see the accident scene and look at dead bodies that are lying on the road. You become very emotional. You think the world has come to an end at that time. But when you finish watching, you get into your car, you start driving out very slowly. In 2-3 minutes, you have shot to 100 kilometers. And you forget exactly what you saw a few minutes ago. So when we listen to events, when we listen to conversations, when we listen to talks, and people hit on those ills in our society, people hit on those things that people who have opportunities to lead, the things they do, we listen to them and we relate to them, they resonate to us. We go back and we get opportunities to lead, we do exactly worse. So the way forward is we talk to ourselves. You don't expect, God has given us the opportunities to lead our nations. God is not going to come down from heaven and lead. So it is us. The way forward is we have to really understand that this nation is ours. Americans are not going to come back to fix this place for us. The British people will not come to fix this place for us. The way forward is we have to make conscious decisions, realistic decisions to say we are going to fix this place. About 20-something years ago or so, I used to live in the US. I used to tell my kids, in the next 20 years, when you all grow up and maybe come back, I don't want you to start asking questions in 20 years' time that Daddy, when our nation was in crisis, what did you do? I tell my kids, I want to be able to tell you that when I had the opportunity, I was able to do this, whether it was enough or not. But I did my bit. That is what Nigerians need to do to fix our nation. That is what Nigerians need to do to fix our states. That is what Nigerians need to do to fix our local governments. Even in town unions, elections in town unions in this country, in this state, in the entire Igbo land, have become the most corrupt elections in our history. Town union elections. It happened in my community just 3 days ago. Town union elections. And it became so controversial. Here I got offer one ezigbo mmadụ si ya this community. A lot of influences come to bear. Even in churches, in clubs. So, how are we going to continue like this? How are we going to make progress as a nation? How are we going to be able to look our children in the face in the next 10 years or 15 years and tell our children that when our nation was in crisis, I was able to do this? What role did you play? So this is my challenge to everybody here. The way forward is not going to be miracle. The way forward is not going to be magic. The way forward is going to be all of us. Making sure that in your own little corner, in your own small comfort zone, you play by the rules. If you play by the rules, forget about whether the next person is not playing by the rules. Play your own rules, by the rules, play your own role, and be that change you seek. That is how we can make progress. It's not enough to keep complaining every day that there is crisis all over the place, but you get the opportunity to end the crisis in one small portion of the place, you create more crisis. I mean, you get into a public position, one man has 82 houses all over the world. One man has 82 houses, a leader. And you forget that all these things are vanity. You have 82 houses, you can only live in one house. In that house, you can only stay in one room. In that room, you can only stay in one corner. If you can have 20,000, I mean, you can have 12 dozens of golden or silver spoons, you can only eat with one. And when you die, you go to a very miserable 6 feet, small corner of the earth. Miserable and very cold and very dead. So why do we seek to get the whole world as leaders? You are a leader, you are proud when you come to your village. It is only you that has a house that is lighted all over the place. Your neighbors and your relations cannot find the money to pay the school fees of their children. I tell you one story. Former Governor Fayemi, former governor of Ekiti State, one day he was telling us that when he first became governor, that every weekend when he goes to his village, he just goes to his village quietly. So he has done this for about 6 months. His community elder sent a delegation to him. Last year, is he sure he's governor? Now, every weekend, nobody hears that he's coming. He doesn't blow siren. Nothing happens. How are they going to tell their neighbors that their son is a governor? Because he doesn't make a noise to come home. But you become ordinary member of the House of Assembly. You want to drive a convoy of 20 vehicles. You want to drive everybody away from the road. Because you are just elected to serve. You're elected to serve and you now see yourself as maximum ruler. So this is the bane of our society, and the way forward is personal sacrifices, personal commitments. That if I find myself in a position of leadership, whether it is church warden or classroom teacher or association president or town union leader or governor or president, you are put there as the servant of the people to provide the greatest good for the greatest number of people. That's what we are taught governance is all about. Providing the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Not providing the greatest good for yourself and a few cronies around you. Then it's no longer government. So we don't have government in Nigeria. There's nothing to compare with what we had in the past. And so finally, the only way we can have government and governance is by all of us committing in wherever we find ourselves to do the right thing. My name is Ike Sibe. Thank you very much.
Please put your hands together for